My mom told me during dinner, "Your sister is having a housing problem, so you need to step up and give her your apartment." I just replied, "If she sets 1 foot in my place, she's going to have a much bigger problem." I do need some outside perspective because my family is acting like this is completely normal. I've been living in my studio apartment for 3 years now. It's 450 feet, which I know isn't huge, but it's perfect for me. I work as a software developer and make decent money. I could afford something bigger, but I actually love my place. It's in a great neighborhood, walking distance to work, has amazing natural light, and I've spent a lot of time and money making it exactly how I want it. The building has character, exposed brick walls, hardwood floors, and honestly, I'm a minimalist anyway. I don't need or want more space. My sister Emily lives about 20 minutes away in a 2-bedroom apartment with her husband Michael. It's nice enough, around 900 square feet, but it's in a more suburban area that would add 45 minutes to my commute each way. Last Sunday, I was having dinner at my parents' house. Just a regular family dinner, nothing special. My mother, Patricia, suddenly announces that she's solved everyone's housing situation. I had no idea there was a housing situation that needed solving, but apparently there was. She proceeds to explain that my studio is embarrassingly small for a successful man approaching 30, and that it's time to live like an adult. She says Emily and Michael's place is too big for newlyweds. They've been married 2 years, and that they're rattling around in all that space. Her solution? Emily and Michael will move into my studio, and I'll take their 2-bedroom. She presented this like she just solved world hunger. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She had already discussed this with Emily, who apparently thinks it's a fun idea and would love to try minimalist living. Michael seemed uncomfortable, but didn't say anything. I tried to explain that I love my apartment, that I chose it specifically, that the commute from Emily's place would be horrible for me. My mother waved this away, saying, "I'm too attached to that tiny box and need to think about my future." "What future?" I asked. "When you meet someone," she said, "you can't bring a woman back to a studio apartment." I'm not even dating anyone right now. And when I do date, no one has ever had an issue with my place. If anything, women seem to appreciate that it's clean, well-decorated, and that I'm financially responsible enough to live below my means by choice. My father, Robert, just sat there reading his phone, occasionally making supportive humming noises when my mother looked at him. Classic dad. I told him, "Absolutely not. This is insane, and I'm not moving." My mother got this look on her face, the one she gets when she's decided something is happening whether you like it or not. She said, "We'll discuss it more later," and changed the subject. Since then, I've gotten 5 texts from my mother with listings for furniture that would look perfect in Emily's place. 3 calls from Emily asking when we should start planning the switch. 2 emails from my mother with moving company recommendations. A text from Michael saying, "Sorry, bro, I tried to talk them out of it." I've responded to all of these with variations of, "I'm not moving." But it's like they're not even hearing me. Emily called yesterday to say, "Mom is planning a packing party for next weekend." A packing party for a move I haven't agreed to. The craziest part is how they're acting like I'm the one being unreasonable. My mother told my Aunt Linda about this, and now I'm getting messages from extended family about how I should help my sister out and stop being selfish with all that convenient location. I don't understand what's happening. My sister doesn't need my apartment. She has a nice place with her husband. I don't need her apartment. I have a place I love. This makes no sense. Am I missing something here? Is there some cultural norm where siblings are supposed to trade housing based on square footage? Because that's insane, right? I'm at a loss. How do I get them to understand that? No means no. The thing is, this isn't even the first time my mother has tried to reorganize our lives according to her vision. When I graduated college, she had already picked out a job for me at her friend's accounting firm, despite knowing I studied computer science. When Emily got engaged, Mom tried to convince her to postpone the wedding because Mercury was in retrograde or some nonsense. We've always just kind of worked around her eccentricities, but this feels different. This feels invasive in a way I can't quite articulate. I keep thinking about all the little comments over the years. Every time I had friends over in college, she'd apologize for my cramped dorm room. When I got my first apartment, a perfectly normal one-bedroom, she spent the entire visit pointing out where I could fit more furniture. When I downsized to my current studio by choice, she acted like I'd announced I was moving into a cardboard box. But here's what really gets me. I love my life. I love waking up to the sun streaming through my east-facing window. I love that I can walk to the farmer's market on Saturdays. I love that my favorite coffee shop knows my order. I love that I've slowly become friends with my elderly neighbor Margaret, who shares her homemade cookies with me. I love that I can bike to work in 15 minutes. These aren't things you can just transplant to a different apartment. My coworkers think I'm overreacting. Just humor her, they say. Parents are weird about their kids' living situations, but they don't understand. If I give in on this, what's next? Is she going to decide my car isn't manly enough and arrange a trade with my cousin? Is she going to determine my wardrobe needs updating and show up with a personal shopper? The rental market in my area is insane right now. Studios in my building are going for 40% more than what I pay. I locked in my rate 3 years ago, and with rent control, I'm sitting pretty. Emily and Michael's place, their rent is actually $600 more than mine, and that's not including the increased transportation costs I'd have. So this isn't even financially sensible. I've started documenting everything, the texts, the emails, the voicemails. Part of me feels ridiculous, like I'm preparing for some legal battle over apartment swapping. But another part of me genuinely worries about what lengths they'll go to. Emily mentioned she still has a key from when she helped me move in. I asked for it back, and she laughed like I was joking. Update 1. 1 week later. I can't believe I'm writing this update. I thought after my last post and everyone confirming that, yes, this situation is insane, things would calm down. I was wrong. First, thank you to everyone who responded. You gave me the confidence to stand firm, and I needed that, because things escalated in ways I couldn't have imagined. After my original post, I sent a group text to my mother, father, Emily, and Michael. I kept it simple. I want to be crystal clear. I am not moving. I am not switching apartments with Emily. This discussion is closed. Please respect my decision. The responses were something. Mom, we'll see about that. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Emily, don't be so dramatic, James. It'll be fun. Dad, thumbs up. No response. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought wrong. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. I'm drinking coffee in my boxers when I hear voices in the hallway. Loud voices, familiar voices. Then a knock on my door. No, not a knock. More like someone trying to break it down. I throw on pants and open the door to find my mother, Emily, and 3 moving guys with dollies and boxes. My mother is holding a clipboard and wearing what I can only describe as moving day casual, like she dressed for this occasion. Perfect, you're awake, she says, pushing past me into my apartment. We wanted to get an early start. The movers charge by the hour. I'm standing there speechless, while these movers start looking around my apartment like they're sizing up the job. Emily's taking photos of my bookshelf to remember how to organize it in her new place. I finally find my voice and tell the movers they need to leave, that there's been a mistake. My mother interrupts and tells them I'm just nervous about change and to start with the bedroom. One of the movers, bless him, looks uncomfortable and asks me directly if I'm authorizing this move. I say absolutely not, and he tells his crew to hold up. My mother pulls out her phone and shows him something. I kid you not, she had created a fake email for me, authorizing the move. She had somehow gotten into my old email account, probably because I used her maiden name as a security question like an idiot, and sent herself permission to move my belongings. The mover looks at me, looks at the phone, and says they need verbal confirmation from me right now, or they're leaving. I tell them to leave. My mother starts arguing with them about their unprofessional behavior and threatens to leave bad reviews. While she's distracted with the movers, I notice Emily in my bedroom actually putting my clothes in boxes. I run in and physically take the box from her. She looks at me like I've slapped her and starts crying about how I don't want her to be happy and how the studio would be perfect for her and Michael. I ask her why, if it would be so perfect, She hasn't mentioned this to me before Mom's announcement. She admits that Mom came up with the idea, but that once she heard it, she realized how much sense it made. Apparently, she and Michael have been feeling distant, and she thinks a smaller space would bring them closer together. I tell her that's not my problem, and she needs therapy, not my apartment. She runs out crying. The movers have left by this point, and my mother is standing in my living room, arms crossed, giving me the silent treatment. Then she hits me with this. I already told the building manager you're moving out. Emily and Michael are on the lease starting next month. My blood goes cold. I ask her to repeat that. She says she called the building management company, explained the situation, and they were very understanding about the apartment staying in the family. I immediately called the building manager, who thankfully tells me no such conversation happened and any changes to the lease would require my signature. My mother had called the wrong number. She found an old management company listing online that hasn't managed the building in years. At this point, I'm done. I tell my mother and Emily to leave. My mother starts on a rant about how I'm choosing a box over family and how she's only trying to help. Emily is still crying, saying I'm ruining her marriage. I physically herd them out of my apartment and lock the door. They stand in the hallway for another 20 minutes, with my mother alternating between knocking and loudly telling Emily and my neighbors how ungrateful I am. My neighbor Margaret pokes her head out during this commotion. She's 83 years old and takes no nonsense from anyone. She tells my mother that if she doesn't stop disturbing the peace, she'll call the police herself. My mother tries to explain that she's my mother and this is a family matter. Margaret responds, I don't care if you're the Queen of England. You're being a nuisance. God bless Margaret. Since then, my mother has called me 47 times. Emily has sent me a long email about how I'm sabotaging her happiness. My father texted me, your mother is upset. Michael texted me, I had no idea they were doing this today. I'm so sorry. And my Aunt Linda called to say I'm causing my mother heart problems with my stubbornness. I've had to warn my building security about the situation. I've changed my locks. My mother had a spare key for emergencies. I've also set up two-factor authentication on all my accounts and changed every password and security question. The email Emily sent me was particularly manipulative. She went on for paragraphs about how she's always supported me, how she's always been there for me, and how this one thing could change her life. She brought up every favor she's ever done for me, including driving me to the airport 3 years ago. She ended with, I guess I know where I stand in your priorities. My Aunt Linda's call was equally guilt-trippy. Apparently, my mother has been having chest pains from the stress of my rejection. I asked Linda if Mom had seen a doctor. She said no, but that wasn't the point. The point was that I was killing my mother with my selfishness. I suggested that perhaps Mom should see a doctor if she's having chest pains, and Linda hung up on me. The most insane part. My mother sent me a Zillow listing for a house with a message. Since you're so attached to your independence, maybe it's time to invest in something reasonable. The house is a 4-bedroom in the suburbs. The mortgage would be triple my current rent, and it's 5 minutes from my parents' house. When I didn't respond to the house listing, she sent another message. Your father and I would be happy to help with the down payment. Consider it an early inheritance. An early inheritance to buy a house I don't want. 5 minutes from them. The manipulation is so transparent. It would be funny if it weren't my life. Michael called me privately later that evening. He sounded exhausted. Apparently, Emily had been talking about the apartment swap for weeks before the family dinner announcement. She'd been driving by my building, taking photos of the neighborhood, even calculating walking times to various amenities. He thought it was just a phase, like when she got obsessed with tiny houses after watching too much HGTV. But it's more than that. Emily has created an entire fantasy life around my apartment. She's picked out furniture, planned where everything would go, even researched the local gym schedules. She's told her friends she's moving. She's been gradually bringing items to their apartment that she plans to donate because they won't fit in the studio. Michael found a box labeled James's apartment in their closet, full of decor items she's been collecting. This isn't about square footage. This is about something deeper. And I'm caught in the middle of it. Update 2, 3 weeks later. The situation has escalated to levels I never thought possible. I'm writing this from a hotel room because I no longer feel safe in my own apartment. Let me explain. After the moving day fiasco, I thought things had died down. My family went radio silent for about a week, which should have been my first warning sign. When they go quiet, they're planning. It started small. I came home from work to find a potted plant outside my door with a note from Emily. To brighten up your space, though it would look better in a place with more room. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Then I noticed my mail was arriving opened. Not torn or damaged, but carefully opened and resealed. Bills, magazines, even junk mail. I installed a security camera in the hallway with building permission and caught my mother on video going through my mail. When confronted, she said she was making sure I wasn't missing any important documents in my disorganized life. The breaking point came last Tuesday. I got home from a 3-day work trip to find my apartment different. Nothing was missing, but everything was slightly moved. My coffee table was angled differently. My books were reorganized by color instead of genre. My bathroom toiletries were arranged by height. Someone had been in my apartment and tidied up. I checked my security footage. Emily had convinced the building's maintenance guy that she was surprising me by cleaning my apartment while I was away. She showed him old photos of us together and spun some story about wanting to do something nice for her brother. He let her in. But here's the disturbing part. She didn't just clean. I found a notebook she'd left behind by accident, filled with measurements, sketches, and notes. She'd measured every single wall, window, and closet. She'd drawn detailed floor plans with furniture arrangements. She'd even noted things like, James keeps cereal on top shelf, inefficient use of space, and bathroom cabinet could fit more with better organization. I called Michael immediately. He didn't answer. I called Emily. No answer. I called my parents. My father answered and said, Your mother doesn't want to talk to you until you're ready to be reasonable. I was done being reasonable. I called the police. The officer who came was sympathetic, but said since nothing was stolen and Emily was family with a history of having access to my apartment, it was a civil matter. He suggested I file for a restraining order and change my locks again. That night, while I was researching lawyers, Michael finally called me back. He was crying. Actually crying. Emily had asked him for a trial separation. She said she needed space to figure things out and wanted to stay with my parents for a while. But here's the kicker. She'd already told her friends she was moving into my apartment during the separation. She'd given them my address as her new address. Michael also told me something that explained a lot. Emily has been in therapy for anxiety and depression, but she'd been hiding how bad things had gotten. The apartment fixation was apparently a form of control-seeking behavior. She'd convinced herself that if she could just live in my perfect space, her life would be perfect too. I felt bad for her. I really did. But my sympathy evaporated the next morning when I woke up to 47 missed calls in a voicemail from my building manager. Someone had called claiming to be me and tried to add Emily to my lease over the phone. When that didn't work, they'd shown up in person with forged documents. The person, my mother, she'd actually hired someone to forge my signature on lease modification papers. That was it. I packed a bag and went to a hotel. I couldn't stay in an apartment where I felt under siege. I hired a lawyer that afternoon. Here's where things stand now. I filed for a restraining order against both Emily and my mother. The building has banned them from the premises and has their photos at the security desk. I'm having my locks changed to a high-security system. The lawyer is sending cease and desist letters. I've had to take time off work to deal with this mess. The family explosion has been nuclear. My extended family is split. Some think I'm overreacting by involving lawyers. Others, including Margaret, bless her, think I waited too long. My cousin Nathan called to say my mother is telling everyone I'm having a mental breakdown, and that's why I'm lashing out. My father, in a rare moment of spine, left me a voicemail. James, I'm sorry. I didn't know about the forged documents. That's too far. I'm staying with your uncle for a while. Emily sent me one last email before the restraining order was filed. I just wanted to understand why you're so happy and I'm not. I thought if I could live your life, I could feel what you feel. I know that sounds crazy now. I'm getting help. I want to feel sympathy for her, but I'm too angry and exhausted. She and my mother violated my privacy, my security, and my peace of mind. They turned my safe space into a source of anxiety. Update 3. 1 month later. This will likely be my final update. The legal dust has settled, and I'm trying to move forward with my life. The restraining orders were granted. The judge was particularly concerned about the forged documents and the pattern of escalation. My mother and Emily are legally required to stay 500 feet away from me and my residence for the next year. The family fallout was swift and brutal. My mother tried to contest the restraining order, claiming it was all a misunderstanding and that she was just helping her children. The judge didn't buy it, especially after seeing the security footage and forged documents. Emily didn't contest hers. Through her lawyer, she submitted a statement acknowledging her behavior was inappropriate and that she was seeking intensive therapy. She's been diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder and something called displacement fixation, where she projected all her life dissatisfaction onto the idea of my apartment. Here's what I learned through the legal process. My mother had been planning the apartment swap for over a year. She'd been slowly poisoning Emily against her marriage, suggesting Michael was holding her back. She'd convinced Emily that I was unhappy in my studio, but too proud to admit it. And the end game was to have Emily leave Michael and move into my apartment while I would move closer to my parents. My mother had already been showing my future house to her friends, as if I'd already bought it. The most disturbing revelation came from Michael. Emily had found journals my mother kept about her life plans for both of us. Apparently, my mother had my entire life mapped out. When I should marry at 32, who I should marry, someone from our church, how many kids I should have, 3, and where I should live, that 4-bedroom house 5 minutes from them. Emily's breakdown wasn't just about the apartment. It was about realizing how much of her life had been orchestrated by our mother. The apartment swap was supposed to be the first domino in a series of life changes my mother had planned for both of us. My father filed for divorce 2 weeks ago. He's been staying with my uncle and attending therapy. He called me last week to apologize properly. He admitted he'd been enabling my mother's behavior for years, because it was easier than fighting her. He said the forged documents were his breaking point. He couldn't pretend anymore that her behavior was just quirky or caring too much. Michael and Emily are trying to work things out. With my mother's influence removed and Emily in proper therapy, they're slowly rebuilding. Emily hasn't contacted me directly since the restraining order, but Michael says she's genuinely remorseful and understanding of why I needed legal protection. The extended family is still divided. Some relatives think I've destroyed the family. Others have reached out with their own stories about my mother's controlling behavior over the years. Apparently, I'm not the first family member to need legal intervention, just the first to follow through. As for my apartment, I'm still here. I've added more security measures, and honestly, it feels safer than before. Margaret has become my unofficial building guardian, keeping an eye out for any suspicious activity. She also makes sure I'm eating properly, which is oddly comforting. I've been in therapy myself to process all of this. It's helping me understand how abnormal my family dynamics were, and why I normalized so much toxic behavior. My therapist says my strong reaction to the apartment situation was actually my subconscious recognizing a line that couldn't be crossed. Last week, I got a letter forwarded through my lawyer. It was from my mother. She wanted me to know that she's forgiven me for the restraining order and will be waiting for me to come to my senses. She also mentioned that the house near them is still available if I'm interested. I didn't respond. I'm dating someone now. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice. When I told her an abbreviated version of the story, she said, "So you're telling me you stood up to your entire family to protect your boundaries and independence? That's actually really attractive." So maybe something good came out of this mess after all. Final update. 3 months later. I wasn't going to update again, but something happened that I think provides real closure to this bizarre chapter of my life. Emily's restraining order expired. She didn't violate it once, and her lawyer successfully petitioned for early termination due to her ongoing treatment. She reached out through Michael first, asking if I'd be willing to meet in a public place with her therapist present. I agreed, partly out of curiosity, and partly because I needed closure too. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Emily looked different, calmer, more centered. Her therapist, Dr. Rodriguez, was a no-nonsense woman who immediately set boundaries for the conversation. Emily started by apologizing. Not the manipulative, "I'm sorry you feel that way" type, but a real accountability-taking apology. She acknowledged that she'd violated my privacy, my trust, and my sense of safety. She didn't make excuses or blame our mother, though Dr. Rodriguez confirmed our mother's manipulation played a significant role. Then Emily told me something that made everything click into place. "I wasn't trying to steal your life, James. I was trying to steal your ability to be happy alone." She explained that watching me thrive in my small space content with my choices, financially stable by living below my means, highlighted everything she felt was wrong with her own life. She'd bought into our mother's narrative that bigger was better, that success meant constant upgrading, that happiness came from external achievements. My contentment in 450 feet challenged everything she'd been taught to value. The apartment wasn't about the apartment. It was about wanting to understand how I'd freed myself from our mother's expectations, while she remained trapped by them. We talked for 2 hours about growing up with a mother who had our entire lives planned out, about how I'd somehow developed the ability to say no, while Emily became the perfect people pleaser, about how she'd been in therapy, learning to identify her own wants versus inherited expectations. Dr. Rodriguez interjected occasionally, helping us understand the family dynamics we'd normalize. She used terms like enmeshment and differentiation that suddenly made 30 years of confusion make sense. By the end, Emily and I weren't back to normal. I don't think we ever will be, but we achieved understanding. She's staying in therapy, working on her marriage, and learning to make choices based on her own values rather than our mother's projections. About our mother, she's still holding firm to her victim narrative. The divorce is proceeding, and she's telling everyone that both her children and husband have been brainwashed against her. She's living in that 4-bedroom house she wanted me to buy, alone, surrounded by the life she'd planned for everyone else. My father is doing well. We have dinner once a month now, just the two of us. He's like a different person without my mother's constant influence. Lighter, funnier, more present. He told me he's proud of me for standing up to her, something he never could do. Michael and Emily are doing better. They're in couples therapy and have downsized to a smaller apartment by choice. Not my studio, but a 1-bedroom that they picked together. Emily says the smaller space does bring them closer, but not in the magical way she'd imagined. It just means they have to communicate more, be more intentional about their space and time. As for me, I'm still in my beloved studio. I've made a few upgrades. New security system aside, I finally bought the good coffee maker I've been eyeing. Margaret and I have weekly tea, where she regales me with stories from her 70 years in the building. I'm still with the woman I started dating during the restraining order drama. She's met some members of my family and charmed them all. She also thinks my studio is perfect, though she did suggest maybe someday, if we decide to move in together, we might want a place with room for her books. I said we'd cross that bridge when we came to it, by choice, our choice. The biggest lesson from all of this: sometimes the smallest spaces can hold the biggest boundaries, and sometimes protecting those boundaries is the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others who need to see it's possible. My studio isn't just an apartment. It's proof that you can choose your own life, even when everyone else thinks they know better. And that's worth more than all the square footage in the world. To everyone who followed this journey and offered support, thank you. Your validation helped me trust my instincts when my entire family was trying to convince me I was crazy. You helped me hold my ground, literally and figuratively. And to anyone dealing with similar boundary-crossing family members, your space is yours. Your choices are valid, and no is a complete sentence, even if you have to get a judge to help you punctuate it.